rich cultural and religious history that should be respected and at the forefront of any celebration, it's also become a day for many to let loose and enjoy themselves an alcoholic beverage or two, or more. In today's video, we're gonna take a look at the pathway alcohol takes as it travels through your body. We're gonna see the various organs and tissues that it interacts with along that way, and we're even gonna discuss that oh so wonderful feeling called a hangover. There's a lot to do, so let's do this. First and foremost, I have to get this out of the way. Alcohol, or more properly known as ethanol, is a legitimate toxin. While there are studies that have shown that small amounts of daily alcohol consumption can actually be good for you, those studies are pretty inconsistent with each other, and you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody willing to say that alcohol is overall healthy for you. And this is not me judging you, by the way. Personally, I am a bourbon man. It's one of my favorite ways to wind down. But there's never been a point, as I'm sipping on the bourbon, that the cells of my body are like, yes, more toxic ethanol for us to detoxify and potentially get harmed from. But with that said, if you are an adult of legal drinking age, and you're partaking responsibly, all the power to you. I'm not gonna get in your way. Just know that it's not good for you, okay? Okay, I'm glad we had this talk. To the cadavers. Obviously, the very first place that alcohol is going to enter your body is going to be the mouth or the oral cavity. And we can see that very thing right here, but this is a bisected head in the mid-sagittal plane. So that means that we've cut it right down the center, and that allows us to see a ton of really cool anatomy, such as this gigantic tongue, the mandible here. You can see the roof of the mouth with a hard palate and then the soft palate behind it. And then this little flappy thing is called the epiglottis. And we'll see that or what it does in just a second. But the thing to really understand is that lining the tongue and lining the cheeks, in fact, lining the entire inner surface of your oral cavity, is mucosal tissue, a mucosal lining that really just kind of helps keep things lubricated and you're just humid inside of your mouth. But the thing to understand is that it's capable of absorbing alcohol. In fact, they did a study with some wine tasters to see how much alcohol is getting absorbed when they're doing their wine tastings. Think about it, as they sip the wine and they slosh it around and spit it out, they may not be drinking it, but it's spending a considerable amount of time in their mouth, and it makes sense to figure out if some of that's being absorbed in the bloodstream. And it turns out a very small amount is. And I mean a very small amount. So that means when you're casually drinking, a very extraordinarily small amount of that alcohol is being directly absorbed into your bloodstream from your mouth. But the vast majority of it is going to continue on. And it's going to bypass the tongue and enter this next area called the pharynx, or your throat. And that's where that epiglottis is going to come down and block off the airway. This is the upper portion of your trachea, or your windpipe. And that makes this your voice box, or the larynx. And you obviously don't want the fluid going down into your airway, so the epiglottis diverts it and pushes it into the esophagus. That's what you're looking at here. And the esophagus is your food tube, or I guess in this instance, it'd be a food and a drink tube. In fact, I have another esophagus for us to look at here. Now, this is going to look a little weird and be probably somewhat difficult to wrap your mind around. But this portion, this is the larynx, or your voice box, and this is the Adam's apple. So that means you're looking at an anterior view of the trachea. This is the thyroid gland, and that makes this part of the tongue. But what we really want to focus on is I'm going to slide the trachea and that nerve with it to the side, and we see this is the esophagus. It's just a muscular tube that is connecting that pharynx up here all the way down to the stomach. So the stomach is actually going to be the very first real place that alcohol is going to be absorbed into the body. And it's somewhere around 10, maybe 15 or so %. The vast majority of alcohol is going to get absorbed in the small intestine, which we'll see in a second. But you can see on this stomach right here, this, if I can hold this up properly, is the end of the esophagus. And then it turns into the stomach, and it's just kind of curving over to the right. But this, well, I guess I should say here, at the base of the stomach, we have this really important structure called the pyloric sphincter. So this section of the stomach from here until the small intestines start is called the pylorus. And inside of there is a very strong sphincter called the pyloric sphincter. And the reason why this sphincter is so important is It's because it's literally a gatekeeper. That's what pylorus means. If you drink alcohol on an empty stomach, the pyloric sphincter is going to be more open and the alcohol is going to just enter into the small intestines, meaning that on an empty stomach, alcohol is going to get into your bloodstream quicker. But if you have food or some other drink, what's going to happen is inside the stomach, a bunch of stomach acid is going to be secreted, and this pyloric sphincter is actually going to pinch tight, pinch shut, and it'll slowly start opening. It kind of like just casually opens just a little bit here and there, and that's called gastric emptying, and it's at a very specific rate, well, more or less specific, and that means
I think it's an egg, Gus.
have food with your alcohol, it's going to get into your bloodstream, well, delayed. It's not going to happen right away, at least the majority of it. But like I said, some of the alcohol is capable of being absorbed in the stomach. And in fact, I have a different stomach for us to look at. It should be right here if I can get this organized for you. And so this stomach has actually been cut. We've removed the pylorus, and that allows us to do this. This is one of my favorite things. I love this. To reflect it like this, so you can see the inside of the stomach. And you're looking at all these folds there. Those are called gastric rugae. And that literally means stomach fold. They're just really unique and interesting to look at. What I want you to picture is that this entire inside of the stomach is also lined with mucosal tissue. And that mucosal tissue serves a variety of functions. One of the most important being to actually secrete mucus, and that mucus prevents the stomach acid, or that hydrochloric acid, from consuming the stomach itself. It's kind of an important job, but the thing to understand is that the alcohol can be absorbed into that mucosal tissue, and then from there it can get into the bloodstream and head to the liver. So you can't, this is the entire reason why if you take a drink, after just a couple minutes, you're gonna start to feel a rush. That's, even though the majority of the alcohol actually hasn't gotten into your bloodstream yet, some of it has because it was absorbed through the stomach and then went to the liver. But the rest of it is actually, if I can pull this back, gonna go into your intestines. And bring them all over here. We're gonna see this a little more clearly in another cadaver dissection in a second. But this is where the vast majority of your absorption is going to occur. But that is going to take just a little bit more time to pull off. So let's go ahead and look at a different cadaver and finish our quick recap. When you first drank alcohol into your oral cavity or your mouth, some of it got absorbed into the mucosal tissue and went directly into your bloodstream, but it was a very small amount. You then swallowed it and it went down your esophagus into your stomach. So the stomach on this cadaver here is going to be located, hopefully you can see this, just like that. This is the stomach, and it's hiding behind this massive organ we'll talk about in a second called the liver. But what's going to happen, remember, as it sends it into the small intestines, the small intestines are absorbing. So the first place we can see the small intestines coming out on this cadaver is going to be right here. Now, as I move these small intestines, you're going to notice something's different about it compared to the one we just saw in that other dissection. The intestines are attached to your body. This is called the mesentery. And it's, the way I always talk about it, all those zombie movies, they're wrong. Right, in the zombie movies, you get like an abdominal wound and the guts are just like dragging. I mean, it's possible. It's definitely possible, but that's a pretty serious cut. The intestines are attached, and they need to be, because what they do is they absorb the nutrients, but they have to absorb them to somewhere, bring them to somewhere. And if you look closely, you're going to see all these little blue lines. Those are veins taking whatever they've absorbed. So this would be any food or drink, any nutrients that went into the stomach and got released into the intestines is going to be absorbed into the mesentery and is then going to travel to the liver. The same goes for anything that's absorbed by the stomach. And we did just see that alcohol or ethanol is absorbed in some quantity by the stomach itself. So the stomach and the mesentery and the intestines are going to send the alcohol to the liver. And look how big this thing is. On top of it is a diaphragm muscle that I've scooted up so we could get a pretty good view of this liver here. It's absolutely enormous. This is the second largest organ in the body if you count the skin as an organ. And this thing is so amazing. It has so many different functions. One of the coolest properties, I guess you could say, of it is that it regenerates. Most of your body does what's called healing. And healing isn't all that cool.
Anders.
Healing is a mixture of some regeneration, but mostly scarring. Not the liver. The liver is capable of true regeneration. That's because it takes so much abuse. It's not just ethanol. There's other toxins that get into your digestive tract that it has to try and detoxify through some really interesting chemistry. But throughout all that abuse, it could take some damage, so it needs to be able to regenerate. Such an amazing organ. But let's take a step back again. Right? So the alcohol goes into the liver, and this is where it's going to be met with an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase. But I should also mention the stomach also had alcohol dehydrogenase. What this enzyme does is it interacts with the ethanol and converts it into something called acetaldehyde. Here's the ironic thing. Acetaldehyde is actually more toxic than the ethanol itself. And if that's where it was left, then we'd have a serious problem. If we left just the acetaldehyde as it was, oh, you'd be in a world of trouble. But luckily, the liver is also going to have another enzyme that can convert that acetaldehyde into something known as acetate. And the body can easily take care of acetate, no problem. Here's the thing. The amount of alcohol you consume and the time frame you consume that has a pretty strong influence on the liver's ability to convert it all the way into acid. So what'll happen is you drink it, it gets absorbed, it's permeating the tissues, but it isn't able to handle the entire workload all at once. So some of that ethanol is going to make its way into the bloodstream. Because the liver is then going to send the blood directly to the heart. Now so this gigantic thing is here. Kind of remove this. This is the pericardium. You can see the heart here, and what's going to happen is the heart is then going to beat and send that blood directly to the lungs right next door. And this is how alcohol can be on your breath. Because as the ethanol gets into it's in the blood, it's going to go to the lung tissue. And inside of the lungs, you have all these hollow air sacs that are surrounded in capillaries. And what will happen is the ethanol will evaporate into those little air sacs, and then as you breathe out, so kind of picture this could inflate, and then as you breathe out and it kind of gets squished, what's going to happen is that ethanol is going to go up your respiratory tract and it's on your breath. This is the entire premise of a breathalyzer and why it works. So kind of interesting that way that you can actually get rid of alcohol. When you are drinking, you're getting rid of alcohol by simply breathing it out. But not all of the ethanol is going to do that. The rest of it's going to go back to the heart, and then when that heart contracts, it's going to send the blood all the way up straight to the brain, and then start distributing it throughout your entire body. This is something that's so important to take note of. Ethanol is going to interact with pretty much everything in your body except for bone tissue, because it's just so hard, and fatty tissue, because you have to understand, ethanol is water soluble, and fatty tissue is made of lipids, and oil and water do not mix. If you've ever done that experiment, maybe back in like elementary school. So sure, some ethanol can get into your fatty tissue, but it's a very small amount. But everything else in your body, so like I just said, your lungs, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this all that much, kind of pull this tissue to the side. There's this organ down here called the spleen, your gallbladder. Everything in your body is going to interact with the ethanol. To what degree does the ethanol have an effect on it? There's a lot of factors that go into it. It depends on how vascular that organ structure is in the first place. It depends on your genetics. It depends on your overall health. So it's hard to give you a real solid answer on that. But a real interesting one is what it does to muscle tissue. Actually, I should probably take a quick step back. We're going to see the brain here in a second, but you need to understand that ethanol actually stimulates what's known as your sympathetic nervous system. This is your fight or flight aspect of your nervous system. And what that means is it's going to accelerate the heart rate. So the heart's going to just start beating, and as it starts beating, it's going to start pushing blood even more forcefully into things like muscles. It's also going to cause you to sweat. This is why if you're drinking, you'll start sweating because your sympathetic nervous system isn't going off. But think of all the ethanol is hitting the skeletal muscle tissue, and that can actually have an effect on protein synthesis. So let's say you went to the gym earlier that day, and you got a really good workout in, and then later that night you decide to have a few drinks. Well, those drinks could possibly
buying them,
negate, maybe not
Buy,
entirely,
buy.
but a significant portion of your gains.
I will.
Because the alcohol prevents proteins from being built inside of the muscle tissue. Absolutely fascinating what's going on there. So,
What she's
all right, alcohol is now, if we kind of take a step back to kind of make this kind of a process, alcohol is now heading straight for the brain. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump on over to some brains and check it out. Okay, so blood is pumping straight to the brain, and that's what we have here. So this upper portion is called the cerebrum. It's highly folded and such an amazing video. In fact, I did an entire video on just this one section here called the prefrontal cortex, so you should definitely go check that out after this video. This lower portion is called the cerebellum, but what we really want to look at, because it's so cool, is if I flip it over, you can see that there, if you look closely, that is, there's this gray outer portion and then this white inner portion. This is gray and white matter, respectively. The gray matter is where the cells of the brain, called neurons, are communicating with each other. So picture billions upon billions of connections all happening in just this tiny little area and traversing with the probe, and that's where they're just talking, and they talk with the use of something called neurotransmitters. And I guarantee you've heard of neurotransmitters before.
I swear I'll
The
check
two
it.
most famous are probably dopamine and serotonin. But
Yeah, it is your bad.
there's other
It
ones
don't.
like GABA and glutamate
Hey!
that ethanol is also going to affect.
Be with
Ethanol is
thick
also
food.
going to affect the secretion
You be
of
fucking
endorphins.
respectful, cunt.
Which, so let's put this all together,
Oh, you
right? So
stupid Australian.
without getting
Hey!
too granular or
These are fuck
nitty-gritty,
shape.
you're gonna have
Oh,
pleasure,
they're like
you're gonna have
kangaroos.
euphoria,
Oh.
you're gonna have
Mate,
lowered
I'll fucking
inhibitions,
fuck
and you're gonna have lowered cognitive ability and lowered reflexes, and when you bundle it all together. So basically, think about it like this: when you lower inhibitions, that's when things start saying and doing
Two
things
pellets.
that you normally
Tag
wouldn't
one.
do, right? Like when you're drinking alcohol, all of a sudden you get this great idea. What if I took off my pants, I jumped on the table, and I just
Coming behind,
screamed,
coming
"I'm
behind
king
me."
of the world!"
TTT.
Right? Anybody who's not drinking, that is a terrible idea. But someone who's 5 shots of tequila in, that's smart. Not only is it smart,
They were
it's
tea, they were tea.
necessary. Right? That just goes to show your choice-making ability has gone out the window. But you're literally thinking slower. But you're also euphoric. You're happy about it. It's a really strange combination. That is only
think
the
they're
effect
going
that it has on
deeper?
the neurological tissue.
That's how
It's
you
also
talk,
going
boy.
to
That's how
affect
you
your
talk, bro.
hormonal system. So what I want to do is another dissection,
Deeper,
and it's that
gone through
sagittal head
window.
that we've already seen. So we can focus on these two structures here. So this first one that I'm traversing with my probe is called the hypothalamus. This is going to be
Getting
just
blue.
above another really famous one known as the pituitary gland. Together, they form what's known as the hypothalamic pituitary axis. And that's a big word that's really not all that necessary to remember. Just understand that these
How do you
two
disable it?
structures control your entire hormonal
Someone
system.
else is buying
The
it.
hypothalamus is more or less in charge of the pituitary gland. So it'll
Well, so if I
secrete
disable it,
hormones
someone else is
that
playing
cross
nice
around
here.
the pituitary gland. But the hypothalamus is
Hey.
constantly monitoring your body. So when you start drinking, the hypothalamus is aware of it. And it's going to start adjusting based off of the ethanol. In fact, it's going to basically tell the
What the
pituitary
fuck?
gland to start bossing around your adrenal glands. And your adrenal glands are what secrete cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and epinephrine and norepinephrine, also known as adrenaline. So think about it. You drink, not only do you have diminished choice-making ability, your inhibitions are gone, but now you're stressed and you have adrenaline coursing through your system. If you remember just a moment ago, we talked about the sympathetic nervous system and the heart rate increasing and all that. So this is a pretty potent mixture. But not only that, the pituitary gland is also going to slow down its secretion of a hormone known as antidiuretic hormone. So a diuretic is something that causes you to urinate. So anti-diuretic hormone would mean that you would hold on to water. But what instead happens is ethanol influences
Good play,
the
Bird.
secretion of ADH, and that's going to have a pretty big effect on your kidney. See, the kidney is going to... This is a really cool dissection. So you can see
No.
a bunch of amazing structures in here,
Yes.
and these are just renal
No.
pyramids. And this outer portion
No.
is called the cortex
Yes.
of the kidney, and inside of here are all
I'm
these
telling.
tiny little filtration
No.
units that are filtering blood. You see, blood gets pumped. See if I can grab this. Through this artery here, called the renal artery, and that is then going to go to the outside of the kidney and get filtered into urine, which will then be dropped down this long tube called the ureter and the bladder into the outside world. That means your urine was once blood.
What the fuck?
Well, now the ADH isn't being secreted, the blood vessels. So think about it. So another name for ADH, or antidiuretic hormone, is vasopressin. And I like that name because it sounds like you're pressing on blood vessels, because that's what it'll do. It'll actually constrict the blood vessels inside of the kidney, meaning less blood volume is able to go and get filtered, meaning you get less urine. But you're drinking alcohol. What's going to happen instead is you are going to be peeing a lot. I remember I used to, before I knew any of this, years ago, I used to be confused. Like, I'd have one beer.
Guarantee these kids.
I try to do the math in my head. I'm like, okay, I drink that much,
Smoke corn,
but I pee
brush short, take
that
thee.
much. Like, it never made any sense to me, but that's because of the lowered ADH. But what that means is you are now dehydrating yourself. You're getting rid of all this fluid,
Green, you gay.
and more fluid than you're
Yeah,
bringing
straight.
in through the alcoholic beverage. That also means the inside of here, without getting too
Headshot the kid
nitty-gritty
window.
into it, in order to make this whole process efficient, the kidney is going to start dropping electrolytes
Sure.
into the urinary tract. And so that means as you urinate,
Orange,
you're
you
going to
got
start
bomb, orange, you got bomb.
losing electrolytes.
Yeah, sure.
And this is going to be kind of important when we're talking about, or maybe with hangovers.
Just ran
But just think about it like this. Not only are you dehydrated,
just
you're also
short
lowering your
piece
ability to
green dot.
rehydrate. Because electrolytes are what attract water back into your body. So I'm sure you're starting to see where this is all going. You're jacked out of your mind on adrenaline,
Once
stress
it's
hormone.
eaten.
You are making bad decisions. You're happy about it, and you
There it
gotta
is.
pee all the time. I mean, it's
There
if
it
that
is.
does
Last one was
not
there, last one,
sum
I'm
up
pretty
the
sure.
alcohol experience,
Yeah.
I don't know what does. At the same time,
Too
though,
easy.
alcohol doesn't affect every single individual in the
Carrot
exact
egos.
same way. There are certain things that affect how it affects you. So, for instance,
we?
sex is a large one.
Not
See,
fully.
females have a higher body fat percentage. And so let's say I had a male and a female who weighed the exact same, and they drank the exact amount of
What's
same
that
amount of
using
alcohol.
fucking-
Well, what will happen
What's
since
the
the
fucking
female has
org
a
of
higher
T-side
body
called?
fat percentage,
Of sag.
that also means she
What's that
actually
using
has
sag
less
only?
blood
Like a
volume.
pro.
So that same amount of alcohol is more concentrated in her lower blood volume than it would be for the male, meaning it can actually affect her
One
more
shot,
intensely.
Short.
But
Yep,
things
yep.
like age are also going to play a giant role. You have things like
Sure. Nope, you're still
genetics.
kicking around.
There's certain people that just aren't able to produce the enzymes in enough quantity to properly break down alcohol. Like we mentioned earlier, how do you have
Come
food
in,
in
come
your
in, come
stomach?
in, come
Do
in.
you have drink in your stomach?
There's one junk.
These
Oh,
things are
sure,
all going to
never mind.
play a pretty big role.
Wait, he's jungle.
But we haven't even
he's
talked
jungle,
about
bro.
what happens
Yeah,
after
get him.
all of this. After all
Oh,
the
he
fun,
jumped out.
hangovers are actually
easy.
still pretty mysterious. Like, we have general ideas.
Yellow,
like,
bro.
I
Turn
can tell
the
you a
X
hangover
up, my
is
guy.
essentially because you're dehydrated, lack of sleep,
Not the first
just
time I've
maybe
hit
physically
it.
beat up because who knows what
Same.
you're doing, like jumping on tables, saying you're the king of the world. Like, we can say, like, generally there's all these little things that add up to create the hangover. But if you actually start trying to break down specific pathophysiology, the
Somehow
real
I did
causes,
damage that round.
it gets
Not
kind of
sure yet,
hard
but-
to figure out what's going on. One of the leading culprits, at least what we think, is that acetaldehyde that we mentioned
Dang
earlier. So remember, acetaldehyde is more toxic than the ethanol itself. And so the idea is that too much acetaldehyde can actually start to create that hangover, or at least some of the symptoms of that
Oh, left
hangover.
side on A.
Which I should probably
We don't
mention
got
the
Bombi.
symptoms. I mean, there's things like everybody, and these are all
Take
everybody's
it, sure.
favorite, right? You've all been there. Diarrhea,
Left side of you guys.
nausea, possible
You
vomiting,
fat, ugly dog.
just fatigue, you're just exhausted, and you have an extreme loss of appetite, which is interesting because if we're talking about how to overcome the hangover,
It's one on
there's
short.
also
Attack,
not a
we
lot
can
of
get up here.
real understanding as to what can
To
solve
attack.
it other than time. I don't know, I've heard talk about
Okay, sure.
I used to be in the United States Marine Corps, and if any of you know about United States Marines,
Let's go. Go,
we
go, go.
like to drink. And so I remember hearing so many different remedies after a weekend of just harsh.
There are a lot of different energy drinks on the market. There are 11 different varieties of Red Bull, 30 different varieties of Rockstar. There are 62 different varieties of Monster, and that's only 3 brands.
I tagged
There are
everyone
at
that
least
fucking ran.
70 easily findable brands on the internet. I just had to stop counting. In today's video, with the help of the cadavers here in the lab, we're going to discuss what happens to the body when you consume an energy drink.
Who's counting, bro?
And we'll see the effect it has on the autonomic nervous system and how that will then have an effect, a cascading effect, on nearly every system in the human body.
Yellow, you got bomb.
It's going to be an
Yellow, you
energetic.
got bomb. Don't.
Let's do this. Let's first clarify what is and isn't an energy drink. Coffee is not an energy drink despite obviously having caffeine. And we're going to go into greater detail later in the video with this, but caffeine actually prevents the drowsiness signal entirely in the brain. It doesn't actually provide you with chemical energy.
I'm a flash.
Soda, yes, could kind of classify as an energy drink, simply because it has glucose, which is a simple carbohydrate, and glucose is used to actually make chemical energy. But if we are classifying an energy drink as a liquid beverage that has sugar in it, milk would qualify as an energy drink. And I don't know about you, I don't think I'm running a 5K after pounding a glass of
Yellow,
milk.
you dog.
So I hate to be this guy, but according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, an energy drink is typically a carbonated beverage that contains caffeine and other ingredients such as taurine and ginseng, and is intended to increase the drinker's energy. So for our purposes today, I'm going to consider an energy drink Monster, Rockstar, Red Bull, Full Throttle, everything you see here in front of you. Now, it's also important to mention that this video isn't meant to demonize any particular drink or brand. Honestly, there's nothing really inherently wrong with most energy drinks, but too much of a good thing will become a bad thing, no matter how good or essential that thing may have been in the first place. The problem with many energy drinks is the quantity of caffeine, sugar, and other ingredients. And then when you stack the effects of those substances onto one another, there can be some serious risks associated with them depending on a variety of factors. So if we instead look at energy drinks as something to be consumed at time, let's say you get me through a day's work after a long night with a newborn baby, or maybe helping define the motivation to go to the gym on a day you just don't want to work at. Just fill in the blank. I don't know that should bother us all. Caffeine in itself is not bad. Too much caffeine can be very bad for you. Sugar, despite what the internet will tell you, in and of itself is
I'm gonna flash
bad,
up, then we go.
Too much sugar
Go,
can
go, go,
be
go, go,
very,
go, go, go,
very
run!
bad for you. How much is too much depends on the substance as well as the individual partaking. This is important to understand that toxicity and health consequences on the whole are about the dose, not about the substance itself. The problem as I see it with energy drinks really comes down to the quantity, frequency, and timing with which they're consumed, as well as the demographics that are most likely to consume them. But if you're the type of person that can have an energy drink every once in a while, again, I don't really see a big problem with that, generally speaking. But if you're eating a ton of highly processed foods, not exercising, or have other serious health concerns, adding even one energy drink honestly may just compound the problems you already have. In my mind, the questions we really need to be asking ourselves are things like, should children and teenagers be having energy drinks at all? Should pre-diabetics, hypoglycemics, or anyone who suffers from metabolic syndrome be having energy drinks at all? Should those who lead a sedentary lifestyle? You see where I'm going with this. I think we can have more focused and nuanced questions that we're asking instead of just broadly saying, are energy drinks bad for us? Now, before we see what happens to the body when you consume an energy drink, I think this is a good time to discuss the sponsor of today's video, AG1. AG1 has been sponsoring our channel for a little over a year and a half. The nutritional drink is something that Jonathan and I truly believe in. I drink it each and every morning, and I would continue to do so even if they stopped sponsoring our channel. I believe in it that much. AG1 is comprehensive daily nutrition. It's made up of 75 high-quality whole food source ingredients, which includes vitamins, minerals, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. And I want to be clear here, if you're the type of person who enjoys the occasional energy drink, you're more than welcome to consume this as well. It's not as though they're mutually exclusive. I personally use AG1 as a replacement for my daily multivitamin, and given how easy it is to consume, the added benefits are just icing on the cake. All you do is take 1 scoop, add it to 8 ounces of water, and shake it up. This is easily part. Take a drink, and then you're just going to carry on with your day. I'm the type of guy that is all about effortless daily habits, so knowing that a significant amount of my daily nutrition has been taken care of, first thing in the morning is a huge weight off my shoulders. If you're interested, visit athleticgreens.com/humananatomy, and they're going to give our audience a 1-year free supply of immune-supporting vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go ahead and find that link in the description below. Again, it's impossible to discuss every ingredient that comes with the many different types of energy drinks, which is why we're going to be primarily focusing on the compounding effects that caffeine and sugar have on the nervous system. But that also means that there's a bunch of other substances that are going to be layered on top of the caffeine and sugar that are also going to be affecting various parts of the body, such as the digestive system, urinary system, and respiratory system. The primary, and some may argue the fundamental ingredient is caffeine. Now, the exact amount of caffeine is actually quite wide depending on the drink itself, but many of them will add an additional source of caffeine in the form of guarana extract, which has twice the concentration of a coffee bean. When caffeine is consumed, it blocks adenosine receptors in the brain. So what you're looking at here is a right hemisphere of the human brain. So this highly folded portion is going to be the cerebrum, and then this down here is what's known as the cerebellum. You can see the brainstem as it transitions into a central core of the brain, which we actually call diencephalon. But adenosine receptors are proteins that are going to be found all throughout the brain, all throughout the cells inside of the brain. And the molecule adenosine is what is going to bind to them, to absolutely no surprise. Now, when adenosine binds to an adenosine receptor, it actually sends a signal that the brain, or rather it contributes to the brain's sensation and perception of feeling drowsy. So what will happen is caffeine will come in there and actually plug up the receptor. Right? It fits into the receptor, but it doesn't activate it. And by not activating it, the brain doesn't receive that drowsy signal. And so you then are feeling left feeling, I should say, energized, despite not actually being given any energy. You just don't feel drowsy. Here's the problem. Caffeine will wear off, and when it does, the adenosine that has been getting produced all throughout the brain's tissue is going to pile onto those receptors. And when it does, just picture this. Just picture signals like shoo, zoo, zoo, all these zooming signals going throughout the brain saying, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired.
Yeah, I got 14.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call the crash, or that energetic crash. It's interesting to note that adenosine receptors aren't only found inside the brain, but instead they're actually found all throughout the body, including the digestive and urinary tracts, which helps explain why caffeine has such far-reaching effects on the body. But the presence of caffeine will actually be detected by an area here in the brain called the hypothalamus. So you're actually looking at a mid-sagittal section of a human brain.
Push it out already, bro.
But the hypothalamus is almost like the bridge between the nervous system and the endocrine system. And what it does, it actually does a lot of different things, but for our purposes, it's going to be involved in homeostasis, which is essentially a baseline for the human body that we are either deviating from or coming towards. So you think like body temperature, right? No one's really ever sitting posting a perfect normal body temp. You're either going above or you're going below, or if you do hit it, it's very temporary. But the point is, there is a baseline, and the hypothalamus is more or less trying to figure out how do we get to that, or where do we go away from it. But it will actually detect caffeine. And when it detects the caffeine, that's when it will communicate to this structure right here, known as the pituitary gland. And it will tell the pituitary gland to start, or to communicate with the adrenal glands and to start producing epinephrine and norepinephrine, which most people know as adrenaline or norepinephrine.
We need to win these
Let's now discuss sugar. But to be fair, many energy drinks don't come with sugar, instead come with artificial sweeteners. However, many of those artificial sweeteners will still have some kind of effect on the same structures and pathways we're about to discuss, although that effect does definitely seem to be more limited. However, the artificial sweetener sucralose doesn't seem to have really any direct effect on the brain, but instead will affect the pancreas and overall insulin sensitivity. Researchers have found that consuming glucose up to 10 days after sucralose can actually decrease insulin sensitivity and have an effect on overall glucose metabolism.
Coming shortly.
And it has been shown to have an effect on the brain's ability to perceive sweetness. But let's say it does have sugar. The sugar will be detected by taste cells here on the surface of the tongue as well as on the surface of the epiglottis, this cartilaginous flap that helps protect the airway during swallowing. But that will then relay the information to the brain. We can actually see a portion of the brain hiding behind this thick connective tissue called the falx cerebri. Now, deep in the brain is going to be a structure known as the striatum, and unfortunately we can't see that here in any of the dissections we have in the lab. But the striatum belongs to a larger set of structures known as the basal ganglia. And the striatum, if this wasn't enough, can be further broken down into what's known as the nucleus accumbens, as well as the olfactory tubercle.
You need bomb, bro.
Now, the striatum is involved in the reward system of the body, and dopamine plays an enormous role in that process. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter and a neuromodulator that's involved in a wide variety of functions. In fact, we can and should make entire videos on dopamine alone. But for our purposes today, you can think of dopamine being involved in pleasure, joy, and just overall sense of euphoria, which is exactly what you get when you take a bite of something very sugary. Sugar is also broken down in the liver into glucose and fructose, and that fructose can be then converted into fat and stored directly in the liver, or the glucose can be stored in the form of glycogen, again, directly in the liver. Or the glucose and fat can be put into the bloodstream and then be used as fuel sources for other cells, or they can also be stored in adipose tissue.
What is CBD? The story behind cannabidiol, the cannabis product that gets you, well, not high. We've heard of CBD, the cannabis product whose popularity has reached almost craze-like proportions. CBD has come from nowhere to everywhere in just the last few years. It is perhaps best known for its ability to reduce anxiety and promote happiness, but CBD's applications are seemingly endless. It's been successfully used to help with pain, insomnia, and depression. There are some reports that it helps with other medical conditions as well. Because of its wide range of uses, CBD-infused products are the fastest growing segment of the health industry. Even some pets are getting in on the action. For example, CBD chewables are used to calm dogs. Carl's Jr., the fast food chain, has created a burger served with a CBD-infused sauce. Not that I endorse Carl's Jr. or any fast food for that matter. In New York City, CBD-infused coffee was all the rage until it became banned. Then there's medical celebrities, Dr. Oz and Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who actually advocate for CBD, as well as non-medical celebrities such as Joe Rogan, Morgan Freeman, Gwyneth Paltrow. Then you got athletes such as David Wells, who argue on behalf of CBD use in sports medicine, where its anti-inflammatory power will allow players to recover more quickly and not risk opioid addiction. There are plenty of MMA fighters who swear by it as well. And Bubba Watson, a professional golfer, said that his decision to use CBD was, quote-unquote, a no-brainer. The FDA even joined the bandwagon last year, at least partially, approving the CBD medication Epidiolex. This is despite the fact that cannabis remains illegal in the federal government. So CBD use is growing by leaps and bounds, with a projected $22 billion market by the year 2022. CBD is cannabidiol, which is derived from the flower of cannabis, the only plant genus that contains a unique class of molecular compounds called phytocannabinoids. So there's more than 80 phytocannabinoids that have been identified, but the two most prevalent are tetrahydrocannabinol, aka THC, and cannabidiol, which is CBD. THC is the psychoactive ingredient of cannabis, meaning THC is the component that gets you high, while CBD is the quote-unquote anti-psychoactive ingredient, meaning it doesn't get you high. There are actually two types of cannabis plants, meaning there are two subspecies. One is marijuana, which is rich in THC and thus has been cultivated for the high associated with its recreational use. And then there is hemp, which is low in THC. Hemp was historically cultivated for the industrial uses or its tough fibers. In December of 2018, in part because a growing body of scientific evidence showing CBD's therapeutic attributes, the federal government legalized hemp. Although 33 states have legalized medical marijuana, including 10 states with legal recreational use, marijuana remains prohibited at the federal level. So both hemp and marijuana contain CBD. The recent full legalization of hemp is part of the reason why some experts believe the CBD market will have a societal impact as monumentous as the tech revolution 2 decades ago. But to really understand what CBD is and why it has only so recently burst into such almost revolutionary prominence, it helps to know a little bit about the history of cannabis and the biology of its use. Cannabis is believed to have been used medicinally, recreationally, and for spiritual reasons throughout much of humankind's history. It's been used in some form by societies throughout the world. The oldest known written record regarding its use comes from almost 5,000 years ago in China. Ancient Greeks used it to dress wounds on horses and to apply to human nosebleeds. It was medicinally popular among Vikings and medieval Germans for relieving pain during childbirth and for toothaches, while Queen Elizabeth used cannabis to relieve her menstrual cramps. But only in recent decades have we come to understand how and why cannabis affects humans. The plant was largely excluded from scientific study due to its widespread illegality until the 1960s, when an Israeli chemist named Raphael Mechoulam was able to obtain confiscated hashish from police and study it. He elucidated the structure of THC and CBD, and then in 1992 made an even more fundamental discovery: the existence of the endocannabinoid system, meaning the ECS, in the human body. So the ECS is the body's largest system of receptors, and it's found throughout the brain, nervous system, and organs. It's been described as the molecular bridge between the body and the mind. Scientists have come to believe the ECS is among the most important physiological systems involved in human health because it regulates both mood and homeostasis, keeping internal systems balanced in the face of external stress and inflammation. He said that by using a plant that has been around for thousands of years, we discovered a new physiological system of immense importance. We wouldn't have been able to get there if we had not looked at the plant. So the implications of this discovery, including the burgeoning applications of CBD, are only beginning to take shape. In looking at the ECS, Mechoulam uncovered naturally occurring neurotransmitters called endocannabinoids that are structurally nearly identical to the phytocannabinoids found in cannabis. THC mimics these endocannabinoids, and binds to the two main kinds of receptors in the body, CB1 and CB2. CBD doesn't directly bind to CB1 or CB2 receptors, but instead serves as a reuptake and breakdown inhibitor, preventing the breakdown of naturally occurring endocannabinoids in the body. This is essentially the same way that selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, work, which prevent the reuptake and breakdown of serotonin in the brain. And if you're not familiar with SSRIs, these are the medications that are mainly used to treat anxiety and depression. Think Paxil, Zoloft, etc. So CBD's health impacts span the entire endocannabinoid system. In particular, researchers have found that CBD increases the levels of anandamide, the endocannabinoid known as the bliss molecule, derived from the Sanskrit word ananda, which means extreme happiness or one of the highest states of being. CBD has shown to generally serve as a boon for brain health, serving as both a neuroprotectant and enhancing neuroplasticity. It's been shown to be effective applied topically in reducing inflammation and overall body pain. Some early studies suggest that CBD might help fight cancer and has already earned a place in overall cancer treatment for its ability to reduce nausea and help with pain. And the benefits of CBD appear to come with little to no side effects, according to the World Health Organization. They said CBD exhibits no effects indicative of any abuse or dependence potential, and to date there's no evidence of public health related problems associated with the use of pure CBD. Because this is all relatively new science, studies of CBD's efficacy in a number of treatments are still preliminary, and its actual marketing is often suspect. Many products are being released without much regulatory oversight, and the CBD levels and overall quality of CBD products are not always as advertised. Mostly they don't come as advertised. So some CBD products contain unwanted THC, which means some people might test positive for marijuana. so you really have to do your research to learn what CBD brands you can trust. Besides determining the safety and efficacy of CBD for various medical conditions, there are lots of other questions that scientists need to answer. For example, what form of CBD should be taken, what is the recommended dosage, and much more. So there's a lot coming down the pike, and if you want to know more about CBD or if you have questions about it, put it in the comments below, and make sure to give this video a like if you liked it and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on the next one.
I got caught smoking weed at Universal Studios. I had my girl bring my kid away, and I was outside of the Jurassic Park. I didn't get caught by like the police, but I was outside of the Jurassic Park ride, and I was like, all right, bring him to go get a soda or whatever. I'm gonna sit here and smoke my vape pen. And there's like one of the handlers. They have a thing where they have a Velociraptor. It's like a person in a costume, but it's like an animatronic costume, and they're pretending to be like a Velociraptor, and the trainer's like trying to calm him down. It's a whole display with the kids, and everyone's really excited. So I'm just like kind of watching it, like getting stoned, zoning out. And at one point, the girl's got like one of those, microphone face pieces on. She goes, "Sir, not here." And that was it. And I went, "Oh." And then I just,
"Sir, not here."
Faded off into the distance. I know.
I wonder if they're cooler about it now.
No, this is a year ago.
Oh.
This is not that long ago.
Wow.
I was very surprised. I was like, this is California.
Well, not only that, what if it was a vape pen with tobacco?
Or CBD or...
Are you allowed to do that?
Probably not. I think there's smoking areas that are designated, but she knew what it was. She saw my face. My mouth was agape watching real velociraptors walk around. I was losing my mind. It was awesome.
Dude. Like, get out of here, stoner.
Yeah.
I was listening to the radio in Utah, and they were talking about how they have to they have to figure out what to do with their drug-sniffing dogs now.
Because there's no reason for them.
There must be some... Is there a change in Utah? Is Utah changing their drug policy? Because it was funny listening to this old dude on... Just for the fuck of it, I was listening to AM radio, talk radio, and this old dude was talking about how they're going to decommission some of these drug-sniffing dogs because they'd use them on like traffic stops.
There we go.
Medical marijuana in Utah could mean retirement for generation of drug canines.
Just fucking putting these dogs down.
Well, they also were worried about the police officers themselves losing jobs. When you hear about pot that's making its way into a place like Utah, first of all, you realize, goddamn, pot is really, you can't stop it.
It's here.
The genie's out of the bottle.
It's here.
The revenue's in. Grandma feels better.
Yep.
The Alzheimer's, the people that have all these serious issues that CBD is fixing, arthritis patients. People with like real problems that are not finding any other solution that works the way cannabis does. They're just giving in, and then they're making all this money. But then you see these old folks that are from a different time, and they're talking about it, and they look at it in terms of like how many police jobs are going to go away,
right?
How many dogs are going to be decommissioned.
Well, none of them smoke weed, so they're like, it's not really my problem.
But it's interesting to watch them look at it as an economic issue.
The problem is you have potheads that are leading the charge, so for a long time it was difficult to take him serious.
Yeah,
you needed straight-laced guys to come in, and now there's a lot of money there. There's so much money in it that you're getting that. But when you have fucking hippies playing hacky sack and wearing puka shell necklaces, it's sort of hard to take them seriously. When the reality is they kind of want it to be legalized for recreational purposes, and I don't use weed. That's not true. I do take CBD. Literally during that fight I was using topical CBD the whole time. So I guess...
Do you take oral too?
I do. I take CBD
excellent.
Daily, but I don't know. Infinite CBD sponsors our podcast and the festivals. Well, they're also... I'll get you a bunch of products because they're a really great company that supports comedy. They sponsored my tour when I was preparing for my special. They're fucking dope. But I take it daily. I take the oil just because... apparently all of the benefits that it has with getting your body back into homeostasis and making you feel better and getting back in line. I don't know the fucking effects. I smoke weed every day as well, so I'm sure I'm getting CBD effects as well. But in my mind, I'm going, well, I have a bunch of this stuff. I know that since I started taking it, I weirdly feel better. But I can't really connect. You said before you take CBD and you go into another realm.
Well, I was taking 1 and 1. It's like 1 gram of CBD to 1 gram of THC. Like it's 1 part. So whatever milligrams you have, it's both. Like if it's 10 milligrams CBD, it's 10 milligrams of weed as well. It's
I will.
Yeah.
But I take regular CBD too, though. I take oil. I feel like it's very beneficial and much more potent in terms of its anti-inflammatory benefits than just smoking it. Smoking it does something for you. It definitely reduces inflammation, makes you feel better. It's good for like sore joints.
The topical I was using.
Topical's good too.
Yeah.
But I think the real combination is topical plus the oil. You don't have to take. But a lot of people find that they have better pain relief from 1 versus 1 plus 1, like 1 part THC, 1 part. So it's like edible, like, you know, marijuana mixed with CBD. A lot of people find great benefit in that for some reason.
Yeah, I had to trick my aunt because my aunt's so anti-drugs, and if I told her that CBD was derived from hemp, she wouldn't take it. But she has bad arthritis, and I gave it to her for that, and she loves it. And then I told her after the fact, but it's great. I mean, dude,
it's just a plant, folks, and if you just get straight CBD, it has no psychoactive properties. It's not gonna. The only thing it's gonna do is for some folks, and it works a little bit that way with me. It alleviates some anxiety, just relaxes you.
Yeah. That's why I smoke weed too.
Yeah,
I smoke, and I've been arrested probably 10 times in my life, and every time was for smoking a joint in the street. Every single time, dude.
When they arrest you, they take you in?
Yeah. New York, doggy. In a fucking cell. It's crazy.
Still? They're still doing that?
The last time I was put into a cell for smoking weed was a year and a half ago. Me and Dave Smith. 2 years ago, maybe. Me and Dave Smith.
Did you tell them you were Luis J. Gomez?
I told him Luis Gomez. That's when I started using the middle initial. I was like, you know what? I learned a lesson.
You know how many fucking Luis Gomez's must have rap sheets?
Doggy. When I go to the airport, every time I come back into the country, I am pulled into a room and they look like they're about to fist fuck me with a rubber glove. Every time.
Have you been to Panama anytime recently, sir?
Yeah, that's it. Come right this way. Every single time.
Anytime in Bolivia, sir?
But yeah, dude, when in New York City, the way it works is dude, it sucks. Oh, it's happened so many times. It's the worst because it's just a major inconvenience.
Yeah.
Pain in the ass to get into Canada. I can do it now because they changed the laws, but I didn't go to Canada for like 3 years because of weed. For being arrested for a joint. We're not talking about like I have an ounce that I just bought from my dealer and they found a large amount on me. A joint smoking on the street, what they do is they at first they take the weed and they go, all right, we're just going to give you a ticket. Just hang tight, relax. We're just going to put cuffs on you. This is just to keep you calm and just to fucking get you in the paddy wagon. This is all a process. Then they put you in a paddy wagon. They used to have sweet nights in New York where all it was they would go and try to find kids smoking weed, drunk kids, college kids pissing in public intoxication. And the entire night, they would just pick up everybody and fill up paddy wagons and create criminals. Just create criminals out of teenagers, you know, and they were targeting. This is why the stop and frisk laws happened in New York. They changed it because they were just targeting black and Hispanic kids.
My site is going as I'm getting older. I can't even read my Twitter feed. Fuck these people. I don't read it. If I don't put my glasses, I don't know what the fuck they're saying.
Oh my god, so good.
But I'm not saying people don't get depressed and get anxious. I'm saying psychosis is a different thing.
Stay there, Yellow. I want you.
My site is going as I'm getting older. I can't even read my Twitter feed. Fuck these people. I don't read it. If I don't put my glasses, I don't know what the fuck they're saying.
Oh my god, so good.
But I'm not saying people don't get depressed and get anxious. I'm saying psychosis is a different thing.
Yes. Okay. I think we are though discussing overall mental health.
Yes.
I mean, look, I'm saying this because I really think that this is something that I've made a big turn over the last few years with myself. That I don't think.
Bathroom break.
Yeah, please go. I don't think marijuana is as safe as I used to think it is. I used to think it was benign. I really used to think there was no big deal. But I have a friend that I discussed the other day who is a really confident, fucking muscular, handsome man that never did anything. And he took a marijuana edible to go to sleep. And for 2 weeks, this guy was this is a different guy, not the guy I was talking about. Not Rafi. No, a different guy. He took it and he experienced suicidal thoughts and all these. He had like severe consequences. I think that the human beings, we vary so much biologically that to just make this overall blanket statement, what's good for you is good for me, is irresponsible, and I've been irresponsible saying that before.
Well, one reason, it's interesting, one reason I think that alcohol is so widely accepted, despite all the problems it causes, and again, alcohol can certainly cause problems, is that alcohol affects most people pretty much the same way. You know, and you sort of know what somebody looks like when they have 1 drink, when they have 5 drinks, if they have 10 drinks.
I've got some friends that get those gerbil eyes. You ever see when people get shark eyes? They're just gone, and then they start talking crazy and like, whoa.
But, no, but you sort of know that, and you sort of know how long it's going to take to clear your body. And cannabis is so different. It's a really complicated drug, and it does affect different people in different ways.
Yes, and also the tolerance has changed.
Yeah. So you know, people say, well, 2.5 milligrams of THC, you vape it, that's like 1 drink for somebody who doesn't use. But then if you're a tolerant user, you can use 200 milligrams in a day. That's 80 drinks.
Yes.
It's a weird drug.
And then there's the issue of eating it.
Yes.
When you eat it, your body produces something called 11-hydroxy metabolite. It's far more psychoactive.
Yeah, you were all along for the ride when that happens.
Yes, you are. Yes, and it can take days for it to get out of your system. I know many people have eaten marijuana edibles, and then they call me up the next day like, dude, I'm still high.
Yeah.
It's real.
So I think the legalization community has sort of said for years, like, oh, there's basically no downsides to this. There's only upsides. The cops will bust smokers. There'll be tax revenue. All these people have a way to get high that's clearly safer than alcohol. And unfortunately, that's just not true.
I think you're right, and I think the issue that people, from what I've read, are having with your book are people that are marijuana advocates and think that your position is unbalanced, and that you've ignored the positive aspects of THC in terms of like what he was talking about, cognitive benefits for people with psychotic episodes, and that you're only focusing on the negative.
I guess I will plead guilty to that.
Yeah.
Because I think that for 20 years, people have only heard the positive.
Right. I think that's also, I'll plead guilty to that myself, because I think that I've only been discussing the positives. And one of the things that I've tried very hard to do, and one of the things I've learned how to do from doing this podcast and experiencing criticism and communicating with a bunch of different people with a lot of different viewpoints, is examine my own positions and try to figure out, am I coming at this from a truly balanced position, or am I trying to support a conclusion that I started out with, and I'm trying to, somehow or another back up my own work or back up my own statements. And sort of prop them up instead of being really honest and objective. It's very difficult to do.
Listen, I wrote a book called Tell Your Children, The Truth About Marijuana, Mental Illness, and Violence. I don't think you can think that book is going to be a compendium of the pros and cons of marijuana.
Well, if you want to tell your children the truth, though, you really do want to tell them the pros and cons.
Right. And you did indicate, Alex, you said, we should tell people the truth in the book, right? So, I think that when you're telling, and you're saying that you're telling the truth, and Alex, I'm agreeing with you that you're telling part of the truth.
Right.
But part of the truth is, a little bit deceiving and deceptive in some ways, right? You want to tell the whole truth. When you tell the whole truth, then you get the whole story, and then people can actually make, a good, informed decision based upon that. Like, if people are going to just read one part of the story, then of course they're going to make a decision just based upon that one part. They're not going to make, an informed decision based upon all of the parts. And because of that, people are going to make, some very poor choices.
I completely agree with that. But to me, the last 20 years have been an exercise in the other side, in the legalization side, doing a very, very good job talking up its arguments, and essentially there's almost nobody on the other side. There's this one guy, Kevin Sabet, who's gotten killed.
Jeff Sessions? But you had the fucking goddamn Attorney General who's telling people that good people don't smoke marijuana.
And that's literally a quote that he said.
Thank God that little moron's not in office anymore. But that's a terrible thing to say.
Sure.
Good people don't smoke marijuana. There's a lot of wonderful people who smoke marijuana. That's just not true.
And by the way, I think this is a personal choice, okay? Especially for adults.
Yes.
Okay? And you can make bad personal choices. You go, look, I play cards. I love to play poker. I'm sad that on this trip to LA, I didn't get to go to a poker room. But you can go into a casino and you can see people who've lost.
Change your flight.
Don't
My
encourage.
friend Ari, he used to make a living doing that when he was struggling with comedy.
Don't encourage me. But you can go to a casino and see people who've lost their houses.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that gambling should be illegal. It also means that there's less and more dangerous forms. That device in your hand where you can bet on what the next pitch is going to be, if it's going to be a ball or strike, that's more dangerous than my having to drive to the commerce and play there. And 100% or 98% THC that an 18-year-old vapes is a lot more dangerous than a 5%, CBD, 15% THC product that Dr. Hart might suggest his patient uses once a night to go to sleep.
Agreed.
But that's the message that we should be putting out there, right? We shouldn't just be focusing on one side of the story. Like that part should also be included in the book. And like your book in some ways has made me rethink the way that I write. Because my first book was co-authored with Jeremy Costin called Friendly Fire. My second book that I'm writing now is called Cannabis for PTG. So it's how to transform post-traumatic stress into post-traumatic growth, right? Because I feel that, and we all know examples of people that have encountered really difficult obstacles in their life, and some people have succumbed to that stress and they've gone down the wrong path kind of thing, and then other people have used that stress to their advantage and they've actually become better because of it. And CBD and THC can both help facilitate that process. When you're looking at someone like a veteran, for example, the hallmark of someone who has PTSD is someone who doesn't leave their home and they can't sleep at night. So like when I see a vet in my office, a lot of the times they'll be leaving their home like 5 to 10 days a month, right? So when you give them CBD, and this is really important for people to understand, CBD has been shown to decrease learned fear. That's incredible, right? So if you can get people outside of their home, because I'm not talking about, again, someone who's, too nervous to like go to the bar with like their friends or something like that. I'm talking to people who like, it's difficult for them to go to the grocery store, just like pick up a few things. So, those are the type of people that I see in my practice. So CBD is really excellent for that. Then when you look at, the nighttime component, THC, again, is excellent for reducing nightmares. That's been shown in studies. And it was even shown with one pharmaceutical drug, Nabilone. Again, I don't really use Nabilone very much because it's only one cannabinoid, and I do believe in the entourage effect and using all of the cannabinoids, so I don't use that much. But that shows that THC can reduce nightmares. And if you have PTSD, and if you talk to someone who has PTSD, and again, this comes from a clinician's point of view, they will tell you, I will try anything. And that's the same way when you get with like the parents of kids who have seizures all day. Nobody wants to see that. And like Alex, if your kids ever started getting seizures, which I hope they don't, because it's terrible, what it can do to people. But when if that ever happened, I would hope that you would consider CBD as a potential treatment option.
I think he's not against that. I think we have to be really clear of this distinction. Like CBD, you're not against CBD at all, and I don't think anybody is. I think no one really is arguing, except maybe the federal government in certain levels is arguing against CBD. That's probably some pushback from the pharmaceutical industry. The reality is CBD is proven to be, at least as far as I've read, very safe and very effective for a bunch of different disorders, especially those that are about reducing and have something to do with inflammation.
Or seizures.
Yeah, one of my good friends, his son has developed seizures, and CBD knocked it out, just killed it. Killed it entirely.
Let me ask you.
This is very recently.
You're somebody who's a cannabis user. You obviously know a lot of users. Why do you think it is that people, in legal states where they can really express a preference, they can go into a dispensary, know exactly what they're buying, why is it that they want such a high-potency THC product?
Because they get used to it. Your tolerance develops, it builds up. Every year we do this thing called Sober October, where we don't do no drinking, no pot, and we do some sort of crazy challenge. Me and 3 of my buddies, and
No Jumper, coolest podcast of the world. Check us out. We're here. It's the Nelk Boys. How you guys doing?
Good. What's going on? What up, dude?
Very, very excited to have you guys on. You guys have been taking the YouTube space by storm.
Thank you, bro.
And it's mind-blowing.
Thanks, dude.
How did this all begin? Like, how did you guys come together? Tell me about the early days of the Nelk formation.
Honestly, man, just like, we never thought we'd get to this point, obviously, so just kind of doing it for fun, just like everyone else, just like making videos, having fun, and then I guess you slowly get views, subscribers.
Yeah.
And just like, fuck. It's been like 5 years now.
5 years of grinding. What was it like in the early days? And was it just you two as the initial team?
Yeah, I was messing around on YouTube, Jesse had an MTV show in Canada.
Okay.
So we kind of teamed up around like 30,000 subscribers. And we said, let's just fucking go hard. We moved to LA from Canada. We were like trying to pitch a TV show. That didn't work out.
Where in Canada?
Outside Toronto, Mississauga, and Hamilton.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys were thinking that you were going to make it in more of like a conventional type of way, and then it ended up that the YouTube shit started cracking up before anything happened like that?
We remember like pranks were like big on YouTube. We kind of missed that wave. So we were kind of doing the typical prank format, you know what I mean? Like that kind of shit. And then the second we started just doing shit that we thought was funny, and our friends thought was funny, like incorporating the drinking, like saying fuck all the YouTube rules and shit.
Yeah.
That's when we started getting big.
That's fucking interesting, because that's kind of the way that I sort of hit my stride in terms of when I think about what No Jumper is basically it's like the bad kids YouTube channel. It's like smoking and drinking or whatever, and it's just kind of But over time, I mean, YouTube has just made it less and less friendly for that kind of stuff. Do you guys deal with that a lot?
You know, they've like.
We used to we don't make a lot of money on YouTube, so we've just been forced to like focus on our content and just like build a brand and find other ways to make money. So like our fans just support us on merch like crazy.
Yeah.
So we're still not making money off YouTube, but we just rely on merch basically, just focus on making the best possible videos.
The merch kills it?
The merch kills it, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys just sort of figured out like the appropriate viral type, like the full send thing. Your fans are just they're on board for it.
Full send, yeah.
Yeah, Full Send just got bigger than us.
Yeah. I just want to say before we get too much further into this, No Jumper Chicago, we're leaving Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We got pop-up shop in Chicago, and then we got shows in London right after that. And you can check out all that information on nojumper.com as well as my Twitter. I just want to throw that out there because we are trying to slang some merch all over the world over the course of the next couple weeks. So Chicago, London, come see us. All right, back to the interview. Also, like and comment and subscribe, you fucking assholes. Okay, wait. So, tell me about the MTV show because I didn't even know about that. I actually kind of thought it was a troll that you had MTV in your name.
Yeah, I don't know. It just it was like a Jackass stunt show kind of thing.
Oh, really?
Low budget as fuck. Like just a bunch of country kids.
What kind of stuff are you doing?
Jumping cars.
IRL Trailer Park Boys type thing?
Yeah. There we go.
Do you guys think that you were influenced by the Trailer Park Boys? Do they have a lot to do with like...
Trailer Park Boys are hilarious, yeah.
That's basically like
we all like them.
The most important cultural tradition in Canadian history is the Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah, dude.
It'd be the ultimate collab. That'd be sick. Shoot a video with them. Imagine Ricky wearing like a Walmart uniform.
Oh my god.
But they're probably... do you think that they're probably just a bunch of bitches in real life and that they're not nearly as cool as we're assuming they are based on the show?
I mean, they definitely don't play their character. You probably think they would.
Yeah.
They're probably just normal dudes.
Like, I think I would get along with the real life version of the Trailer Park Boys. Like, the actual dudes who hang out in the trailer park. I feel like I would meet those dudes and be like, oh, damn, you like, make more money than the people who live in the trailer park, and therefore you're less interesting.
Yeah. They definitely send, though. They probably guzz beers and shit.
I don't think so. You don't think?
Interviews. I'm pretty sure Ricky doesn't drink.
See, I haven't actually seen interviews, but I have friends who are like deep enough that they know about what shows were there. Are you guys too young to like really remember Jackass? Because that's the feeling I get when I watch you guys' shit. Is I'm like, man, this is bringing back that same energy of like the way I felt when I was like 13 watching CKY and Jackass for the first time. Is how I'm sure a lot of kids feel watching your stuff, and just because there's something about being young and just you want to see adults be antagonized on camera.
Yeah,
that's a big compliment.
I definitely watched the shit of all that stuff.
Okay, yeah. Tom Green.
Oh yeah.
Another Canadian.
I've done this before. I've done this in the past before.
Very, very big legend in terms of just the whole genre of messing with people. So were you guys like observing the sort of prank world while it was all going down? You sort of missed like the FouseyTube era and stuff, but you guys were all fans of that kind of content?
I like one we always said we've been a fan of was Vitaly. He was always just like savage and funny. All my friends watched him and shit too. Fousey, not so much.
No,
not really. I think 905 liked Fousey too, but
905 definitely.
You were a big Fousey fan, no?
A little bit.
905 is showing us his FouseyTube
He's got a poster
tattoo.
room, so.
Yeah, he has a big back tattoo that says Yusuf.
Yeah. Steve got a back tattoo of 905 actually.
Yeah, show him.
No, I saw it. Yeah.
You saw it?
That's official.
That's fucked, eh?
Yeah. I thought you were confused at first because out here, Riverside, California, which is like a pretty white trash place. Please, people in Riverside, don't be mad at me for saying that, but it's very like, we always say 909. because that's Riverside.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of thought you were getting first, because I was watching it on the treadmill this morning, and I was like not really 100% paying attention, and I'm like, this fool's from Riverside. How'd you get injected into this whole thing?
I started posting videos of me drinking online, and then Kyle found me, and I had less than 1,000 followers.
Oh, so you were one of these dudes who would just drink like absurd amounts of alcohol or like pound a whole bottle?
Well, I started off in high school making eating videos because all my buddies just made videos. You're such a pig. You should, like, you're disgusting. Like, you should make videos.
Right.
And yeah, so I just started making videos, and then I stopped for like a year. And when I got out of high school, I said, "Fuck it, I'm going to liquor slams."
You went straight to that. What were you eating on camera prior to that? Any memorable ones?
I did a bottle hot sauce, no hands, dip, can of dip.
Like this right here, Skull. You guys are really off the Skull.
Oh, Skull. Yeah. People call me a fucking pussy, but Skull mint long cut, baby.
I mean, to be honest, I'm just kind of like fascinated by it because I've never tried it. I feel like I've tried most of the drugs out there.
Oh,
you're trying right now, then.
You want to
Let's
slam
go.
one?
Yeah, I'll pack one with you.
You show me what it looks like.
Let's get some Ronas flying in here, too.
And what flavor is that Skull, by the way? I can't imagine anything better than me trying Skull on this podcast.
If you could try anyone, this is the safest one to try.
I fucking hate mint stuff in general. I dread brushing my teeth every morning, but I always do it. And also, yeah, we got some limes here.
Got some limes.
We're gonna crack a few Modelo.
They're the best limes you've ever. Great slices.
Really?
Great form, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Holy shit.
What's that?
Wait, what?
Keychain.
Full shot tool.
Oh yeah. By the way, finding Kelly tool.
Okay.
Nice, nice work.
He was saying that
He needs a raise.
at fullsend.com.
Fullsend.com.
I can respect it. Oh, see, I was going to use my own lighter to prove what a badass I am. Here I am. I'm like an idiot. Okay.
Look at the guy. He cuts them up, he cracks them, and he puts the lime in for you.
What a man.
Nav290.
The guy does everything. Man.
How'd you guys discover him? I'm sure he's probably going to hop on camera at some point, but...
We found him at Walmart.
Oh.
He was working the aisles.
Like most great things in life.
He worked in produce.
Really?
In Walmart, so that's why he's so dope. Like, he has a passion for fruit and limes.
I mean, produce, working in the produce section at the grocery store, that's some heroic shit. I mean, you're constantly misting, and like, it just seems like you're fighting an undying battle. You know, you're never going to be able to actually... Wow, look at, oh my God.
Have you worked at a grocery store before?
I did when I was a youngin', and I remember all the friends of mine who would work in the produce section, and I just like respected what they were doing. But it's just it's a war, you know. That stuff is just going. People are buying stuff, the fruit's going bad, and then you're just going to war trying to keep